What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with a brand new player breakdown. This breakdown's on a player I'm sure a lot of you guys have questions about, so we're gonna make this, and that player is Montgomery. Before we get into the video, make sure that you are subscribing so you can keep up on all of our videos. We post videos 5 days a week, and that's not going to stop until the season starts. We also have a special promotion for our subscribers. You can get 10% off of Pro Football Focus's Elite and Edge packages. This will help you set yourself apart from everybody else. They're the leader in statistics, and nobody else can provide to you the discount we are. So check the link in the description box and make sure to use our promo code and get yourself a copy for this season. I have a lot to go over, so I am going to jump right into it. So Montgomery, right? Currently, he is pick 8 in the 4th round on Fantasy Football Calculator. He's the 3rd pick in the 4th round on ESPN, so ESPN clearly has him a little bit more ahead. Remember, these are PPR rankings. So that essentially means in Calculator, he's RB21, ESPN RB19. So he's right at that back end RB2 range. What I've been seeing from Fantasy Football Calculator and his historical view on his ADP is that his stock is rising. He went from a top pick in the 5th round now to the back end of the 4th round, and the way this trend's looking, it looks like it's going to continue in that direction. Now, when I think of Montgomery, one word comes to mind, and that word is potential. The upside for this pick can be a game changer. More specifically in PPR, I really don't value him the same at all in standard just because he's a pass catching specialist, but the potential really is there. Now keep in mind, he's in that range, the 4th round, the 5th round, the 3rd round. All these people in that range have the highest bust rate out of any players drafted. We've ran the data, and the results really speak for themselves. It's just an extremely high bust rate. So when you're drafting players in this area, just know you may not have them on your team after week 8. Now, if you think about players in this zone, they normally offer a higher upside with no real guarantees. The opportunity may not really match the ability or vice versa. The risk is there, and it's pretty easy to be seen. Some running backs in this range are Carlos Hyde, Bilal Powell, Spencer Ware, and Joe Mixon. Now, each of those arguably has immense upside. However, they do come with their fair share of question marks. When in the market for a running back in this range, you definitely have to make the best educated decision you can. So let's look at the facts on Montgomery. Now, he's on the Packers, so they are clearly a passing team. But that's not to say that there is no value in owning a rusher on this team. Historically, while the Packers aren't a top 5 team on the ground, there is a lot of room for value. In 2016, they ranked 20th in the league in rushing yards. Date that back to 2015, where they finished 12th. 2014, they finished 11th. 2013, 7th. 2016 was actually the lowest that they ranked in rushing since 2011. On top of that, the Packers come into this year having lost over 175 carries to free agency, good for 6th most in the entire NFL. Most of those carries lost were between Lacy and Starks, and essentially that is a huge opportunity for rushes from this backfield. Add in the fact that they target the backfield very well, and I think the upside clearly speaks for itself. Now, they have already came out and said that Montgomery will be the lead back. And to be honest, originally, I was not a fan of Montgomery, even when hearing this news. I actually placed him on my do not draft list. The thing is, when I dove into the numbers, I really started to reconsider. To start, he is super athletic, and he's 24 years old, which, if you have followed the channel, 24 years old is the highest percentage age that running backs tend to break out based on historical stats. And Montgomery himself, he was extremely productive in his limited workload, averaging 5.9 yards per carry through his 77 attempts. That is seriously heyday Jamal Charles territory. He was also one of the most elusive backs in the league. That's so much so, even more elusive than LaShawn McCoy himself. He avoided a tackle out of every 1 in 3 attempts. He has actually avoided more tackles than Doug Martin, who had double the attempts as Montgomery did. He avoided more tackles than Matt Forte did, who had triple the attempts. And then he even had more avoided tackles than Frank Gore, who had nearly 4 times the attempts as him. Now, I know none of these players are exactly spring chickens, but when each of those players are fantasy relevant in 2017, it really says something about Montgomery's upside and ability. Another surprising fact about Montgomery is his breakaway percentage, which he actually ranked 2nd in the entire league, only behind Isaiah Crowell, which we all know made a big impact last year on his big play ability. Montgomery did it quietly, coming in at a 47% breakaway percentage, ahead of McCoy's third place finish of 45%. You have to understand though that this sample size is extremely small, and when grading up and coming running backs, I always consider qualified backs as 64 attempts or over, which is an average of 4 attempts per game. I always would like to see more of a sample size, but it does give you a good idea on if he will be productive or not. He actually, if you go back to the video that Nick made, the one on predicting a top 5 running back, he would have made that extended list had his opportunity share been there, had his market share been higher on the team, because he was extremely efficient in his small work. Now, that's where the risk comes in, right? We have no idea if this player can handle an increased workload. 77 carries is never going to tell you that. It's unknown at this point, and part of the risk you're going to assume in drafting him is that unknown. We did actually see him get more banged up in the postseason when he played more of a workhorse role. And if you were to ask me, I'm not sure if I could bet on him handling more than 15 touches a game. His skill set makes him a viable asset for a 3-down role. Can his body handle it is a separate question. Another thing is that he really does struggle in pass blocking. Something that a 3-down back needs to have is a strong pass blocking ability, especially for a team that throws the ball a lot. He was only asked to pass block in 15% of his snaps due to the fact that he was weak in this area. This was his largest takeaway to work on in the offseason. It's an aspect of his game that they are going to be honing in on, but until we see it on the field, you can't guarantee anything. Now, lastly, the Packers did draft 2 running backs. They were later rounds. You had Jamal Williams in the 4th round and Aaron Jones in the 5th. Competition may not fare well in his favor if his body does start to break down during the season. We've all seen situations where new rookie running backs are productive while an injured running back is healing up and their spot's gone when they return and they're healthy. That is something that very well could happen to Ty Montgomery, and it's also part of the risk that you can assume. So overall, where do we grade Ty Montgomery in this upcoming draft? Well, I think his ADP is rather fair. I believe Montgomery has a safe floor in PPR. He has week-to-week ability to have top-end RB2 to back-end RB1 upside, depending on game script. Now, what's really going to determine if he can move forward is going to be his workload. I'm really excited to see how they utilize these new backs and how these new backs look during the preseason. But for now, I think the risk versus reward is in his favor for PPR leagues. Now, definitely don't draft him in the 4th and standard. You're going to have to knock him down a bit. Also, keep in mind, he does run a higher risk of losing his spot than some of these other players around him who have been on their teams and been successful for years prior. But if he fits into your team, go ahead and draft him. You have our seal of approval. That's going to do it for this video. We really appreciate you guys stopping by. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope that clarified a few things on Ty Montgomery. Now, if you like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.